The desert didn't scream. It whispered hot wind through brittle shrubs, the hiss of sand shifting across rock, the low rasp of vultures wheeling overhead. She stumbled forward, barefoot, her soles torn open, each step driving pebbles into raw flesh. The skin of her face was cracked from sunburn, lips peeled like bark. Her dress, once cornflower blue, was now a shredded rag clinging to her with sweat and blood. Oh, she didn't cry. Her body didn't have the water left for that. She didn't know how far she'd crawled. Only that her body had stopped shaking hours ago. Now it was just forward, or nothing. Above, the sun hung like an iron coin, flattening everything beneath it. Cactus arms pointed nowhere. The Mojave was endless. It had taken her breath, her blood, her voice. Her mind flickered like the last spark in a dying flame. She remembered a porch, a yell, a sharp slap, the sound of leather hitting her ribs. Then dragging, feet scraping wood, then gravel, then hot stone. Laughter, boots crunching sand. She ain't worth the rope, one had said. Let the desert judge her. They left her there. Not to kill her outright, but to let the land do it. It's cheaper that way, cleaner. She was a stain to be erased. Her husband had said she was unfaithful. He'd said it enough times at the others. Believed it without question. In those parts, a woman's word was worth half a cup of rainwater, evaporated before it hit the ground. A hiss broke through her haze. She stopped mid-step, eyes narrowing at a shape coiled near a rock diamondback. Rattler, its body lazy but alert. It didn't strike, neither did she. She turned slowly and shuffled away, only to fall moments later beside a dying Joshua tree, her hands sinking into a patch of sand, too soft to be trusted. The sun dipped lower, shadows lengthened, but her eyes had already closed. Her chest rose in shallow waves. Buzzards grew bolder now. Then came hooves, distant at first, then nearer. A dark figure broke through the shimmer of heat waves, a horse dust trailing behind it, and on its back a man. He didn't speak when he dismounted, didn't call out or curse or even breathe loudly. Just knelt beside her, his silhouette cutting the light like a blade. He was tall, broad-shouldered beneath a dust-stained duster, coat, his hat low over his eyes. He touched her neck gently, checked for a pulse, found it faint, thready. Her skin was red-hot, dry as paper. The edge of her lip cracked when he tilted a small canteen toward her mouth. She flinched at first, but instinct took over. She drank. Not much. Just enough to not die, then nothing. She didn't see him lift Herslett onto his horse like sacks of grain. Didn't feel the bump of hooves over hardpan. Darkness came and went like waves. Somewhere along the ride her head lolled sideways, cheek against rough leather. She opened her eyes barely. The sky was black and speckled with stars now, she whispered. Dry and nearly broken. Why? Save me. The man didn't answer. His face stayed turned, unreadable in the moonlight. Not even the twitch of a smile, just the steady clop of hooves through the sleeping desert, in silence. She awoke to dim light flickering against the wooden walls. The smell hit her first sweat, firewood, leather, and something faintly metallic. Her head ached. Her lips felt like torn paper. Her arm had been bandaged tightly, skin still pulsing. Beneath it, a cup of water sat on the stool beside her bed, half full. The canteen from the desert, she realized distantly. The bed beneath her was rough-spun, but clean. Cotton sheets patched with care. The window across the room let in a shaft of dusty morning light, barely enough to warm the cabin's shadows. No chains. No ropes. No shouting. Just silent sand, the echo of breath, not her own. She turned her head with effort, each movement, making her ribs protest. He was there, across the room, sitting at a table, back to her, eating in quiet. Didn't turn around, didn't speak. She waited for the question the tradie expected. What she owed him? But none came. Her throat worked as she whispered, "Where am I?" No answer. Only the scrape of a knife against wood. She sat up too fast. Pain shot through her side like a blade, and she gasped, curling inward. Her legs were bare beneath the Covers, her old dress torn, bloodied, was nowhere in sight. Instead, she wore a shirt too big for her, linen, sleeves rolled twice at the wrists. It smelled faintly of tobacco and cedar. She looked down and pulled the blanket tighter. He stood and walked to the stove, ladled thick broth into a bowl, and set it near her without meeting her eyes. Then he stepped back, not waiting for thanks. She could barely lift the spoon, but the warmth filled her in a way she hadn't expected. Her hand trembled. She hadn't tasted real food in days. She glanced at him again. Not young. Your late 40s. Maybe older. Beard unshaven, silver streaked in black. Broad hands with old scars across the knuckles, like someone who used to fight and then stopped. His chest, beneath the half-unbuttoned flannel, bore the pale ridges of a burn long healed. She tried to speak again, but coughed instead. He moved to pour her another cup of water, left it beside the broth, then turned toward the door. Before leaving, he paused and pointed to a piece of paper left on the table. She waited until he was gone to limp toward it. His handwriting was small, square. You're safe. Rest. There's no rush. She stared at those words until they blurred, then crumpled the note into her palm like it was something too fragile to read twice. The cabin had only one room, a fireplace, a low bed, tools along the wall. One rifle leaned near the door. She explored in quiet moments, when the pain dulled. Outside the window, scrublands stretched wide and dry. The mountains ghosted in the distance. A single horse roamed a split-rail corral. Chickens pecked listlessly in the dust. He returned in the evenings, sometimes with meat, sometimes with firewood. They didn't speak. He left what she needed, then took to the porch with his pipe. Always distant, never watching her with hunger or expectation. She couldn't tell if he was shy or simply hollowed out, and yet every day something changed. One morning, she woke to find her boots fixed, stitched along the split seams, oiled, softened. Another day, a soft, bristled brush appeared beside her hair. A comb, a mirror wrapped in cloth. But inside her, the rot lingered. At night she whispered things aloud without meaning to, called herself names, imagined their faces her husband's. Eyes, cold and righteous, and the others who had held her down. She clutched her ribs and muttered, "Even the sand rejected me. Even the wind turned away." She heard her own voice, like it belonged to someone else. Sometimes she thought of walking into the desert again, letting it finish the job. But on the fourth day, everything shifted. She wandered beyond the barn and spotted him at the edge of the property, kneeling in the dirt. He held something small, curled in a faded cloth. It was a coyote pup, lifeless, blood on its fur. A snare must have caught it. The trap lay beside him, broken. He dug the hole with bare hands, slow and deliberate. When he was done, he took off his hat and laid it over his chest. Closed his eyes. Not a prayer, just something quieter. Respect. She watched from the fence. And in that moment, the weight he carried became clear. She no longer feared him. But she couldn't thank him either. The words wouldn't form. So instead, the next time he left broth on the table, she placed a pebble beside the bowl, smooth white one, shaped like a tear. He never said a word about it, but the next day she found another on her windowsill. The creek wasn't much, just a trickle snaking through red rock and thornbrush, but it was enough. Enough to soak her feet, enough to let wild berries grow along its bank. She crouched low, plucking a few into a handkerchief Micah had left. On the porch, her fingers careful, her eyes scanning the horizon like they always did now. Her strength was returning, slow and stubborn, like everything good in this land. The wind smelled dry and dusty, but it carried something new that day. Smoke. She straightened, heart quickening. Far across the ridgeline, beyond the butte, a black thread rose against the pale sky. Not campfire smoke too thick. A cooking fire wouldn't rise like that. It was fresh, close. She narrowed her eyes, staring into the shimmer, and saw them. 3 riders. One leaned 2-point. Another dismounted, lifting a spyglass. Her breath caught. She recognized the shoulders of the one in front. Way he slumped. slightly to one side like a man used to carrying too much weight. Her stomach twisted. It's the same three who had left her in the desert, alive, and now too alive. She didn't scream. She turned and ran. The sun beat against her back, the dry air cutting into her lungs. Her boots thudded against cracked earth. As she raced across the field, leapt the fence, and stumbled up the cabin steps. Micah was standing at the edge of the barn, a shovel in hand. He didn't ask what happened. Didn't have to. One look at her face, and his narrowed eyes said he already knew. He tossed the shovel aside and disappeared into the barn. She followed, breathless, trembling. Inside, he was already pulling down the old rifle from the wall, checking the chamber. His hands moved with calm precision. She stopped short, catching sight of something in the corner she'd never noticed before. 2 wooden crosses stuck in the dirt just outside the barn door, barely taller than fence posts. The names were carved by knife, rough but careful. One said Rachel, the other Eli. Beneath them, a child's wind chime clinked quietly in the breeze. She didn't need to ask, she understood. And suddenly everything made sense. The silence. The way he looked at her without judgment, the way he buried the coyote, he'd lost everything once too. Back in the cabin, he set the rifle by the door, then another. Then an old 6-shooter scratched and heavy. He looked at her. She looked back. Neither moved. "I want to help," she said. Her voice was steady, even if her hands weren't. He paused, considered her like a man reading a weather front, then opened the drawer and handed her a small pistol, one barely heavier than a book. His eyes locked on hers. No speech, no instructions, just a single glance that said plainly, "Only when there's no other way." They waited. The sun dipped low, burning the hills orange. Every sound grew louder, the rustle of wind in the pines, the creak of the rocking chair outside. Inside, the cabin grew still. She sat behind the table, pistol on her lap, heart pounding so hard she thought it might shake the floorboards. Night fell. Torches lit the distance, 3 of them, flickering. Orange dots weaving through the dark. The men dismounted beyond the barn. Their voices were slurred, loud. One shouted her name, mocking, cruel. "I told you she'd crawl back to something. Who wants to gut her first?" She flinched, gripping the pistol tighter. Micah stood by. The window, rifle raised, calm, still. The kind of stillness that only comes from having faced death before. The first man stepped onto the porch, boot creaking the board. She fired. Her bullet missed, but Micah's didn't. The man dropped without a sound. The other 2 screamed, returned fire. Glass shattered behind them. She ducked low, covered. Her ears fought the instinct to run. Micah reloaded. Another shot rang out. 1 more man down. The 3rd tried to circle around the barn. She heard the crunch of boots, rose to meet him. He didn't see her until it was too late. Lunged forward, and she fired. This time, her aim was true. The man fell backward, torch dropping beside him. Flames licked the dry grass. Micah grabbed a bucket from outside, limped back with water, doused the blaze before it could spread. She stood frozen in place, still gripping the pistol, the world, ringing around her like a bell. He collapsed against the doorframe, hand pressed to his side. Blood seeped through his shirt. She rushed to him, pulled him down gently, tore strips from the curtain to press against the wound. Her hands worked fast, more from fear than skill. He groaned but didn't resist. "Stay with me," she whispered. "You can't," he opened. His eyes barely and said the first words she'd heard from him since the desert. "You saved me too." Asked ChatGPT. Morning came slow. The 2 bodies lay still near the barn, their torches snuffed out in the dirt. No glory, no final words, just silence. She didn't cry. There was no space left for that. Micah lay inside the cabin, half awake, a wet cloth on his forehead. His wound had stopped bleeding, though every movement still brought a wince. She'd stayed up tending to him, washing the blood from his chest with careful hands. He never flinched under her touch. When she peeled away his torn shirt, she saw the scars beneath old ones, thick and pale. A map of pain across his body. Each line a memory, a battle. She cleaned him in silence. Her hands moved without trembling now. Her hand paused once on his shoulder. He didn't pull away. And that was enough. Outside, the sun climbed higher. She walked to the edge of the yard, shovel in hand. The third man had fled in the dark. He hadn't looked back. She hoped the desert would remember him. She dug 2 shallow graves beside the barn, not out of forgiveness, but necessity. She didn't want them near the creek or under the tree where the coyote lay. She worked until her hands blistered, breath tight in her chest. When the last stone was placed, she stood over the mounds, pressing dirt beneath her fingernails. Still no tears, just breath. Later she found her old ring still, in the folded hem of the linen shirt Micah had first given her. It was dented, dull, meaningless now. She stepped outside, lit a fire in the iron stove, and dropped it in. When she looked up, Micah was watching her from the doorway. He said nothing, but he nodded once, like he understood. That evening, as the light turned gold, he handed her something wrapped in canvas. Inside was a rifle not new, not polished, but clean and well kept. Beside it, a wide-brimmed hat with a faded blue ribbon tucked inside the lining. A woman's hat. She looked at him, confused. It was hers, he said quietly. The words settled. Like dust. Not heavy. Just honest. She turned the hat in her hands. Why give it to me? He shrugged, then met her eyes. Keep walking forward, she nodded. That was all she could do now. 3 days passed. The sheriff came riding up on a dusty brown horse, his badge dulled from years of sun. He stepped down with a curious look, glancing between the graves in the cabin. He asked questions, wrote things in a small notepad. Then finally, he looked at her. You got folks out east? She shook her head. You want to testify? We can. Ride out by Monday, or we can send word. She thought for a long moment, watched a cloud move slow across the sky. There's nothing for me there, she said. Only what I carry, he nodded, tipped his hat. He didn't press. The old. Wood creaked beneath their weight. Hawks circled high above, wings stretched wide against the setting sun. They didn't speak. He didn't need to. Her fingers brushed his once on the railing. He didn't move away. And for the first time since, she'd been left for dead. But out here, between dust and bone, a silent man and a dead woman found something worth keeping alive. If this story moved you, don't forget to like. What would you have done in her place? Let us know in the comments. And hit the bell icon so you never miss a tale from the frontier.